so dreamy. Oh, fantasy, free me, so you can't see me. No, not at all. In another dimension, with voyeuristic intention. Well secluded, I see all.
Hey y'all, and welcome back. If you happen to stumble upon this video, I'm glad you did, because today we will be going into a different sort of rabbit hole. Sure, most of my videos entail are mostly reaction videos on purported paranormal clips that have been compiled by YouTuber Slapped Ham. But I've been doing research on other topics ranging from arguments for the possibility of cryptids to the topic that we are going to be discussing today. Now, for the ones who are still waiting on the Bigfoot discussion, I apologize. This and a few other things have taken over my brain and kind of shunted all thought capacity away from cryptids down into a much deeper and intriguing rabbit hole. I hope this soundbite to the intro of this video may have given a clue as to what our topic of discussion is today. If it hasn't, then let me illuminate the darkness for you. Today, we will be discussing the Mandela Effect. Yes, you heard me right, the Mandela Effect. Now, for the record, just in case there is someone who has fell into our little corner of the world and quite possibly taken a shine to my voice, I'll give you a definition of what the Mandela Effect is. Basically, the Mandela Effect is a phenomenon where a large group of people remember an event or detail differently from how it actually occurred. Wait a minute. Now, before y'all start yelling in the comments below, that's what Google says is the definition. But if a large group of people actually remember a certain detail differently from another group of people, how can we say which one is actually right? Now, let me put it into perspective for y'all. Say 100 people watched a car accident and 48 of them saw it one way and the other 52 saw it another way. Which way is actually right? The percentages are too close to really determine the issue at hand. Now, I don't know the precise amount of people who remember certain things one way and what percentage remember another way, because I don't think this has been properly studied by science, and if it has, they haven't let the cat out the bag yet with their findings, because it might let something slip that they don't want us to really delve into, which is the real purpose of this video. Did y'all know that even the coinage of the term Mandela Effect is in it itself part of the Mandela Effect? Now, hear me out on this one, because it is kind of interesting. The term was first coined by a woman named Fiona Broome in 2009, but a lot of people believed it was actually in 2013 when she created the term. I honestly don't remember ever hearing this term before 2013 myself, but I digress. But before I get into a theory I've been thinking about, which is based on scientific information and theory, let me give a few examples of this phenomenon. Now, the classic example is that of which the event is so named. Back when Fiona Broome first coined this phrase, she remembered that Nelson Mandela had passed away in the 80s in a prison in South Africa. She even remembered news coverage of this incident from back in the 80s, though, she found it not to be true. As it happens, he survived after 27 years of incarceration and became president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999, and then passed away in 2013. Which is where I kind of think the time frame in which she first coined the term should be. Now, why would she think about it during 2009? Wouldn't something like this come up in 2013 when he passed? Because that's when I personally would start getting to thinking like, hey, wait a minute. I thought he passed away already. Y'all agree? If you do, leave it in the comments below, so we can get some little conversation going on it, because I truly would like to know what y'all think about it as well. But anyway, here are a few more honorable mentions for the Mandela Effect. if I go through all of them, we would need a whole nother video just to get to the rabbit hole I really want to get into. So, at number 1, Fruit of the Loom. Now, we all know this comfortable clothing brand. Most people have either had their socks, underwear, or sweatsuits at one point in their lives or another. Now, when y'all think of this particular brand, do you visualize this logo? Or do you see this logo? Number 2 is Monopoly. The game that would cause so many family fights. We all remember playing this game at one point or another in our lives. Do y'all remember Mr. Monopoly as always being this? Or do you recall this one? Now, this one came as a bit of a shock to me. I didn't even ever recall this one ever popping up on the radar previously. And that's the 1940s film, Casablanca. Now, it's just one little simple time framing, I guess you could call. And it's very reminiscent to Snow White's evil queen, the mirror on the wall situation. But anyway, I digress on that one. Now, do you remember hearing Humphrey Bogart saying, "Play it again, Sam"? Or do you recall Ingrid Bergman's character saying, "Play it, Sam"? Now, I honestly always remember Humphrey saying, "Play it again, Sam." He's sitting at the table and everything like that. So this one is a bit strange to me. And you know what? We'll move on to the next one. If y'all want to talk about it in the comments below, go right ahead. Let me know what y'all remember hearing. Because I specifically remember Humphrey Bogart saying, "Play it again, Sam." Now, this is the last one I want to touch on before we move on. Now, do some of you listeners recall in or around the early 90s, I want to say maybe 1994, where the actor Sinbad played a genie in a movie called Shazam? Some say this movie never existed. But why do so many people think it had occurred and can even remember the VHS cover of it? A particular cover that many people can describe perfectly without the other person who described it the same way being anywhere around them, though it is supposedly never existed. Also, they say we are confusing it with this movie. Honestly, I don't recall this movie at all. Shaq playing in a movie? Yeah, that's understandable for the time. Michael Jordan even had a movie at this time. Space Jam, anyone? Now, I know I only went through maybe 4 of these things, but there are so many more of these sort of, as medical news today calls, false memories that a group of people share. Now, I'm going to put the links in the description box below to quote the sources I'm going to be utilizing for this video, and for others if they wish to look into what I'm speaking about more. Now, back to what I was talking about in the importance of her coining the term in 2013 as opposed to 2009. So, I spoke about 2013 being the year that Nelson Mandela had passed away in, and that should lend credence to the time frame of 2013 being when Broom coined the phrase the Mandela Effect. Now, another item of note that occurred in late 2012, before it was shut down for upgrades in 2013, was the discovery of Higgs boson by the Large Hadron Collider. I really don't want to bore everyone with the scientific jargon and make this completely stale by bringing in too much physics, so I'll put this into more palatable wording. These scientists whip around energy so particles can collide to allow them an inside look on how the subatomic structures work. It's insane to think we do have this sort of technology available to us, and it's scary what the implications can cause. Enough energy and particles being tossed around and split can cause a black hole, a rip in the time-space continuum. Though they stated that they did not create a black hole during this time, would they really let common citizens know if they did? Think back to how long we've speculated on the universe and existence of other beings outside our tiny speck of dust in which we live on. Everything was so hush-hush until on July 26, 2023, when the congressional hearing occurred. This hearing included testimonies from 2 military officers from the USS Nimitz who in 2004 were in a jet fighter and came into contact with a vessel that had otherworldly capabilities, speeding up, slowing down in a matter of seconds, speeds in which no human-made craft can accomplish. Don't worry. This is just a minor touch on this subject before we delve back into our main focus. Now, y'all have seen this clip, right? I took this clip from The Guardian's YouTube channel, link in the description box below.
My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like... Look at that thing! It's rotating. Nickel 6-1 Tango, Roger, oh, got it! Woohoo! Roger, there's troubleshooting as soon as Did you box moving target? No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at it fly!
Now, this is the recording, or recordings, I should say, of what the 2 officers had seen in 2004. Now, there's tons of speculation on how come no other pilots, commercial or military, have spoken up on this matter. Main belief is that it is all covered up in NDAs that are signed upon being hired, and that is what I feel is really the likely story of it all, you know? Because this literally took an act of Congress to get these videos out for public consumption. So, what else are they not telling us about? Now, I get it. Don't think I can't look at 2 sides of the coin now. If they did tell us everything, how many people would go into crisis mode? How much more insane would our already insane world be? I think it would need the nice padded cell that has the least amount of noise to keep calm even after the tranquilizer shot. But you know what? That is just my opinion. So, of course, I get that they can't tell us everything, but we should at least be aware of possible major catastrophic events. Don't y'all agree? Now, anyway, back to the collider in 2012. After being turned on and these scientists discovering the Higgs boson, which is a particle that has no spin, positive parity, no electric charge, and no color charge. It is also called the God particle. When I tried looking into this a bit more, especially its alias as the God particle, it mainly talks about how Higgs boson gives other particles such as quarks and electrons mass, and the nickname, well, this is what it says. The term God particle was popularized by physicist Leon Lederman in his book The God Particle. If the universe is the answer, what is the question? From 1993. Well, Lederman used the term partly humorously and partly to reflect the particle's significance in understanding the universe. Despite its name, the Higgs boson is not considered divine. Well, I would think not, but anyway, rather it plays a crucial role in the Standard Model, helping to explain how particles acquire mass. You know, it's kind of ambiguous, ain't it? Anyway, after this discovery, they shut it down for maintenance from 2013 to 2015, stating it needed upgrading. This isn't the first time it was shut down for a long extended period of times. Well, this was the first time, I should say, but it's not the only time, I should say. Back in 2018, it was also shut down for upgrades until 2022. You know, I keep on wondering, didn't they ever watch Home Improvement? Anytime Tim added more power, things didn't go well for him. But I digress. Y'all are probably trying to figure out where I'm going here, and believe me, I'm getting there. Just setting the scene for y'all is all. So now that part is out of the way, let me get to my theory, rooted in science, of how the Mandela Effect can occur and how we can have two groups of people living on the same planet and can have different memories of logos or events. Now, how many of y'all have ever heard of the string theory? This is the iconic Einstein theory of relativity. So there are actually several different layers of string theories that can be combined into one big theory, the big string theory. Now, not to be confused with string cheese, but maybe a bit closer in describing how all the string theories can combine to create the big string theory. Y'all, the reason I bring up that is just because every time I say big string theory, I come up with big string cheese. You know, that's the first thing that wants to pop out my head. So, bear with me. Anyway, I'm just going to say I'm not going to confuse everyone by going into all the scientific jargon that goes along with describing this theory, but I will simplify it for y'all to make it easier to take in. So just think of me as a mother bird for a moment, will y'all? Now, take a guitar, for example. Y'all know how they look. You got the body, the neck, and then, most importantly, the strings. The body and neck ain't worth a thing until you add the strings to it, because all you can really do with it is knock it around or tap on it to create a noise, you know? But the strings, well, the strings are what can be considered the most important piece of the guitar, correct? I mean, you can make a guitar out of high quality wood with steel strings, or you can make it out of a shoebox and add rubber bands of different sizes and tautness to it, and the outcome will be the same if you run your fingertips over the strings of your choice. They both produce a reaction. This reaction, in the case of the guitar, however you decided to create the guitar, is that it produces sound. Each guitar string, now I will go back to using a regular guitar for this as opposed to the shoebox one I mentioned previously, is, of course, different gauges or thickness, and each one is fretted into a different location on the head of the guitar to create a different pitches, and then adding your fingers to the fretboard on the neck, and you can create a plethora of notes just by strumming one hand across the strings and moving the other hand across the fretboard. To all the musicians listening to me, I know there's a little bit more to it, but let's be honest, these are the most basic terms in which to explain how to play a guitar, and this is a very basic understanding of how string theory can also be understood. Basically, the theory states that everything is built upon these so-called strings, and what is the biggest reason for how objects appear on these tiny, tiny strings is how they vibrate. We all know from physics class that everything has energy. even inert or resting objects. We may not feel the vibration as we could in, say, strumming the guitar string, but for objects to keep their surface tension and shape, they are vibrating just the same. It is how you can hear someone talking in another room by listening in, like through the door or the wall, you know? Otherwise, we would be in a vacuum and nothing could be heard at all. I know it sounds as if I'm leaning heavily on, well, sound to describe string theory, and the strings in string theory do not focus on sound in particular, but on the very fabric of our existence. It is just the best way to get the point across and relate it to what more people would be able to visualize instead of the bleak darkness of space. Now, we got the basics of this out of the way. Let's dive into how this can correlate to the Mandela Effect. I haven't mentioned one or the biggest parts of string theory yet, but since I brought back up the Mandela Effect, let's bring in the most interesting part of the string theory. Y'all already know that we see in three-dimensional images. We can perceive for depth, height, width. If not, we'd be bumping into a chair, a wall, or a table constantly. That's one of the drawbacks of some animals. They cannot determine depth. Some people can either, but not like how, let's say how a dog can't determine depth. If y'all want to see what I mean by a dog not being able to determine depth, check this out right here. Now, I know a rug like that can trip up anybody, but you see what I'm getting at, right? Anyway, we all established that we, as human beings, can see in 3D, correct? But what if I told you that the string theory states that there are more than 3 dimensions? That there are, in fact, 11 dimensions, but we just cannot perceive them all. What would you think about that? The prospects alone are infinite. Utilizing this theory alone can explain so much of the paranormal. Different dimensions coinciding together on the same plane, but not seen. It is something to think about. Are ghosts just glimpses into another dimension? Are cryptids such as the Wendigo, Mothman, and the rare creatures that can hop from one dimension to another? What of aliens? Are they really from a far-off, distant planet 50 million light years away? Or are they coinciding with us right here on Earth, just phasing through the other dimensions that we cannot see until they phase into ours? And this is where I tie this whole thing into the Mandela Effect. So, y'all remember the Hadron Collider? Well, during 2012, instead of just finding the Higgs boson, what if they created a rip in reality which shifted our dimension and another very similar dimension, and they clashed together? That our reality and their reality merged together, and the ones who remember things a different way than what the status quo states that they are just part of the original or alternate timeline. This would actually make more sense when we put it into this perspective as opposed to it just being a shared false memory held by thousands of people. That's the part that always bothered me about the shrug off from mainstream science about the Mandela Effect. How is it that I, an American citizen living in a certain part of the United States, have the same memories of something with someone from, say, Japan, England, or South Africa? I mean, I can name countries till I'm blue in the face of different locations that others have the same memory. Sure, scientists can state, well, the advent of the internet, many people can share the ideas across the globe. But, honestly, these are not things that I looked at on the internet beforehand. Nor is it something I really paid much attention to until I started seeing the occurrences of the Mandela Effect pop up more and more. And, honestly, that's when I started digging around a little bit on it and actually went into the science of the Hadron Collider and, why it was assembled and, the thought processes behind it. And then, of course, that led me into, the theory of relativity through Einstein and also, Stephen Hawking and his the string theory, going and explaining more of it in depth and everything. So, all this stuff, once I started seeing and noticing things just didn't seem right, I decided I'd start looking myself and try to figure out, well, what happened? Like, I can remember things clear as day. And, this was stuff that I'll be honest with y'all. I mean, where I grew up, I didn't have internet until I was in high school. I mean, places in the rural South did not have internet, like, in the 90s, as well as people in more of an urban location could have it. I mean, well, hell, I could tell you, we didn't start getting 911 services until 2001, where I grew up. So, I mean, that just tells you that I didn't have the opportunity that some people would have in terms of being allowed to get on the internet and things like that. I mean, there's probably a lot of y'all who probably grew up the same way I did. You went outside, you played, you had fun, and you didn't stay inside all the time. I mean, I'm not saying a lot of people did spend time indoors and everything, and that everybody had the internet services available to them in the 90s or early 2000s. I'm just saying that when you grew up where I grew up, you didn't have a lot of interactions with too many people that you could have a conversation like this. You know what I'm saying? You had only a certain amount of people. Everybody knew who you were just by looking at you, and everybody knew everybody. You couldn't do anything crazy because, God forbid, you did anything crazy. Your mama would have known about it as soon as you got home. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's how I grew up. So, when I started seeing stuff that just didn't, deal with the memories I dealt with growing up, I had to start looking into it and what was the cause of it and why would something like this happen. That, like I say, the Monopoly man. I could remember clear as day playing Monopoly when I was a young kid, and I swear to you, I remember seeing the little barnacle on his head and everything, right there above his eye, and him having his little cane and top hat and everything. I remember it. But, seeing things now saying, oh, that never happened, or that, the movie Shazam was never a thing, just, things like that just started my gears turning, in my brain and everything. And I just wanted to find out more and research more. And this is what this is the only thing I could really come up with. I can't come up with it being a shared false memory. Like I say, I didn't really have proper internet till probably when I was in college. We had more important things to worry about. We had a farm we had to help take care of, and schoolwork. Only time I would really go on the internet actually was at school when I had to go look up a paper report and everything like that. So, like I say, in my teenage formative years, I had no internet available to me. I was Encyclopedia Britannica. You would actually go and get volumes of it and have to collect all these volumes from the grocery store. That's how I got most of my research done for high school papers. That I go into the library and using the card catalog to get the stuff. I know I sound like I'm dating myself right now because it does sound a bit older, but that was early 2000s for me while I was in high school. Late 90s, early 2000s. So, like I say, I didn't have a lot of information on, like, internet and things like that until maybe more along the lines of my second and third year of college, that I actually was able to go and scroll through the internet and try to look through things and things like that. And even afterwards, I'd say maybe within probably past 7-8 years, I've noticed, that I was able to use the internet for more things than just looking up ideas for vacations or online shopping or bill paying and listening to music. Honestly, those were the only things I would really do until about 7-8 years ago. So, I just had to go on this little bit of rant right here, because it's just the notion that, they want to cover everything with, oh, it's just a false memory. Everybody has them. I'd say, I'm going to put out a random number. This is probably not the number they have, but, 35% of the world's population has these false memories. But if you have such a high population percentage that has these false memories, they had to come from somewhere. And I mean, I'm not saying that every single location has internet. No, there are places that probably still here in America that you can't get internet, because I'm going to tell y'all, growing up how I grew up, and still to this day, I'm going to tell you, going back home and going through certain areas, I lose cell phone service. I lose GPS service. Thank God I know my way, but you lose them still. So, I mean, it's not a big drastic leap for me to say that, there's some people even here in the United States who still don't have internet, So, for people like that to also still have these same shared memories where they can't have this sort of back and forth with a community or, other listeners or whatever, them not having that sort of, people to talk to and communicate to, and they still have these type of memories. There's something that's kind of mighty strange going on that they're hiding. And, it's strange to me, like I say, I've always believed in the paranormal, but this, it honestly sounds like a work of science fiction than paranormal. Something right out of like L. Ron Hubbard, or even we'll go and bring a little bit of paranormal into it, like Lovecraft novels, It's just very, very strange, and it's just something, this is the only possible theory that, or, people trying to sit there and possibly try to mind control others, to give that power suggestion. We can see if maybe, if we say that this never happened, maybe people will start believing it, So, there's been a lot of government cover-ups with stuff like that, in terms, let's just think of one recent big one, the LSD that they used to do. They studied the United States government in the, I want to say 60s or 70s. So kind of fairly recent if you think of it in terms of time concepts and everything like that. They were doing studies on LSD in the New York subway systems, where they would actually lace the handholds going down the stairs and around the turnstiles with LSD, and see how people could respond to that. It was a big old cover-up, big old hush-hush back in the day. But, now we're finding out that, yes, this really happened, and these poor people had to suffer through an experiment. I mean, this could be an experiment, too. I'm not saying that, these are the only two logical things I could think of, is that we had a government conspiracy possibly with this, which wouldn't be, too far off on the course. In golf terms, you'd be right there near the green with that. You wouldn't be out in the woods, let's just put it that way. But, that, or just even with just the emergence of the timeline for Mandela Effect coinciding with the Hadron Collider also puts a lot of interesting theories out there. And honestly, this is the closest thing that I kind of subscribe to, that is kind of a little strange that everything coincides around that time of the discovery of the Higgs boson anyway. So, take what y'all want with it, government conspiracy, or we had a rip in the space-time continuum caused by the Hadron Collider. I mean, honestly, quite frankly, I would prefer the possibility of a accidental oopsie, so to say, with the Hadron Collider than thinking that the world's governments are trying to do a mass conspiracy of, making people think they're kind of going a little crazy, because at the end of the day, that's kind of what some of it feels like. You know what I mean? You feel as though you're not too sure of yourself anymore. You think one thing, and then you felt this way for years. The next thing you know, oh, that never happened. You kidding me, right? So, I'm sorry, this is going to be like a long, drawn-out rant with this right here, and I kind of totally went off my topic course that I had planned out and actually written out, because I'll be honest with y'all, I do write a little script for some of this and everything, so, it makes it a little easier, and I've gone way off topic on it, but, I just still think it's kind of crazy and a little insane, and hopefully this is just more of an accidental on the Hadron Collider oopsie than the more devious plot of my thought processes. So, I mean, this is pretty much it. I mean, I hope y'all enjoyed this, and leave a comment below. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all think it's a government cover-up, or do you think that it was the Hadron Collider causing a rip, like a little micro black hole, and it messed with the timelines just a bit more than what they would think? Let me know in the comments. Like I say, we can have a nice little discussion about it, and I just hope y'all enjoyed this. Like and subscribe. I do have some other ideas coming up. I mean, this took me a bit more research than I thought it would, and I apologize for the delay, and I apologize for not being around too much. I had some issues where I was a little bit sick and everything, and I don't think y'all wanted to hear me blowing my nose and coughing all over the microphone. I mean, y'all couldn't catch it or anything, but I just thought I'd have my voice be a little bit better for y'all. I didn't want to sound hoarse or sniffling and coughing and everything, so I do apologize for the delay. I will have more videos up, and also, let me know down in the comments. I have some ideas for more videos now. I'll let y'all know right now. What I'm thinking is possibility of, since my channel's name is Southern Cryptid after all, maybe I can go into some lesser known Southern cryptids. So I mean, it would be great for my name anyway, besides the point. There's quite a few of them I know from Cherokee folklores and more of the Seminole tribes, things like that. I know quite a few of them. I can also go into some Appalachian folklore for y'all. If y'all want to be interested, leave it in the comments below. Tell me which one y'all'd like to hear more of. So I hope y'all enjoyed it, and like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later, alright?